The logistics industry is poised to take the next leap. With the government pushing reforms at all levels, logistics management is increasingly becoming a topic of interest and consideration. Because if you want to reduce your operational costs, increase efficiency, and also improve customer satisfaction, logistics is something that you need to really take care of. And to talk more about it, I have with me two veterans from the industry. I have Mr. Shashikaran Shetty, who is the founder and chairman of All Cargo Logistics, and Rubal Jain, the managing director of Safe Express. Welcome, gentlemen, and welcome to Global Business Summit. If I may ask you, Shashi, that reforms like the FDI and the Make in India program, how does that open up diverse opportunities for the logistics service providers?
I think it's directly linked to the logistic industry. Make in India means manufacture more in India, and FDI means we are looking at long-term investment of foreign funds in, hopefully mostly into manufacturing. So Make in India obviously is related to FDI, and that should directly benefit the logistic industry in the years to come. Right. I think the biggest driving factor for the global manufacturers and to build scale and to build it for not only for domestic market, also for export, we have to reform a lot. I think the ease of doing business directly linked, in my view, on three main things. One, of course, is the whole process of infrastructure, better ports, better connectivity, better rail infrastructure, and passenger transportation, great urban places to live. Because that, I don't know how much attention. The government is definitely putting a lot of attention, but we don't see on the ground much is changing. It's only getting worse. Ease of doing business is also about that. End of the day, you have to attract talent, and for you to attract talent, you need to have a great place for them to live and for their families.
Rubal, let me bring you in at this point of time. When I talk about infrastructure, how Shashi mentioned, how do you see the infrastructure development now that is happening in the country? And this is particularly in terms of logistics related infrastructure, whereas you have, the freight corridors and you have the coastal ways that are being developed. What is your view on that? Do you see that happening at a pace that it should be happening at?
One, I'm happy it's happening. That's a big positive. I don't think it's happening at the pace it needs to be done at, because when you really look at it, any travel time within the country of goods or people is actually increasing day by day. Congestion is increasing, so as much infrastructure as you can build in, you're actually only catching up and not really improving the timelines out there. The other issue I feel that's there is that while there is the seaways being built, there are the container freight stations being built, there are the highways that are being pushed aggressively across the country, we don't see a holistic approach to logistics as such. Right, so we'll build a container freight station, but we'll forget to get a highway out there. We'll get a sea freight terminal built in, but it'll be in the middle of a congested area where trucks will not be allowed in, and there'll be a no entry or something.
So you think there's lack of planning on that?
So I think it's not as much a lack of planning, but logistics as such, it does not have an industry status, and there's no one common logistics ministry, which as of today was proposed, but we're not really sure how it's going to happen. But at some point, that is very, very critical, because you need to look at logistics, from a 360-degree view.
Shashi, since you're a global player, and I want to bring you in at the point of when we definitely discuss technology, and how technology has changed, as we were discussing, a lot of sectors and a lot of industries for the better.
Yeah.
So in the logistics segment, how do you see players leveraging technology? Because it's being used at a very poor rate when you see the numbers across the country.
Yes. I think one of the most important thing is about connecting the dots. In the logistic industry, you have multiple players and multiple stakeholders. You have the customs, you have the ports, you have the shipping companies, you have the freight forwarders, the consignees and the shippers, container freight stations and ICDs, and there are a whole lot of other agencies. I think it's very important to get all of them under one platform. That I'm very happy to say, I mentioned also earlier, is that the government is very seriously thinking of developing this platform so that everybody can come and connect, and so that there is no multiple transactions, or there is no disconnections that is happening.
Okay, and I want to bring in GST at this point of time, and because that's the buzzword these days, and it's obviously termed as a game changer for a lot of industries. So Rubal, why don't you tell me, how will GST perhaps change the dynamics of the logistics industry, because it is going to do away with a lot of excess baggage that the industry is carrying, whereas your warehousing is concerned, whereas your distribution channel is concerned.
Look, I think GST is going to be a game changer for pretty much the entire supply chain from manufacturer to consumer, and logistics companies play a vital part of that whole supply chain. The baggage, as you said, in the system, there is a lot, and from the manufacturer to the distributor to the dealer to the retailer, there is a lot of inventory in the system. There are and regional warehouses interspersed within that. For that to go away, it's going to take a little bit of time. I think people aren't just going to sort of stop producing. I feel that there's 3 to 6 months of inventory in the system, so all of that to move out and then to get logistics services to be extremely efficient is going to take time. But that's only short term. I think in the next probably 18 to 24 months, we'll really start seeing the rewards of this new GST regime that come in, and extremely efficient transportation, the biggest impact of which is inventory holding costs, which will go down.
But Shashi, is there any global learnings that perhaps the Indian players can learn, because there is, specifically in this industry, there is a lot that we can kind of inculcate from our global peers and incorporate that into our working system?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest learning obviously is the compliances, right? In the logistic industry, if you see, there are many areas where the way the industry is structured, it is not only fragmented, there is no policy, there is no standard policy, let's say, between across the country. I think it's one of the biggest thing that the government is in the process of doing is about setting up some kind of a standard, level playing field for everybody to operate and compete in the marketplace. And the compliances is also a responsibility of every logistic operator. For example, not to overload the trucks, for example, right? So that starts with some of the issues of people-to-people contact. So that compliance, if it is very clearly come out of in the policy, which is there already, but the biggest thing is the compliance. That becomes a very important responsibility of the government to comply with. And obviously, Indian companies are one of the best as a logistic service provider, because even under very adverse conditions, we do a great job.
I want to kind of talk about the e-commerce industry right now. There is a lot of focus on going cashless and the digital economy, and there is a great boom that we are seeing on the e-commerce side. Does that open some opportunities for logistic service providers as well?
Indeed, e-commerce is a growing venture, and I think it will continue to grow leaps and bounds. That brings the challenge of that whole distribution, the first mile, the last mile, and the line haul. And that is where a company like us would definitely, they're already in the game big time, and it's an opportunity for many other companies to play a active role in that business.
So how is the online business panning out for you as a player?
See, online business at the end of the day is somebody buying and somebody selling, and it's just the last bit of it has changed, which is you're not buying in a shop, you're buying at home now. But the first 90% of the supply chain still remains as complex and as hard to work with in today's day and age, which coming with GST hopefully will definitely ease out a lot. A manufacturer will be directly able to send something over to your house without having to go through a store, without having to go through a dealer, which is going to be the biggest change, because even from a cost perspective, that is going to be extremely low. So, you could be a ready-made apparel manufacturer and you can sell directly a shirt to you, which is, today it's happening, but it's happening in its own weird way, which includes a marketplace model where actually the shop himself is selling to you. So it's actually more complicated today and costlier today, because you've had shops in Bombay selling stuff to a consumer in Pune online, which is not how it should be. But that will change the moment GST does come in because of all the taxation issues. And I think a little bit of the government's sort of acceptance towards FDI in e-commerce is also going to help create a more functional model, I think, which is going to be good. But yes, I mean, at the end of the day, e-commerce, regular commerce, retail, they are all dependent on logistics. At the end of the day, if the material does not reach the store or does not reach your house, that's the problem. It's not so much about being able to set up a site or being able to attract a client with better advertisements, a better product. If you go to a store and your size is not available, sale is lost.
So I have to ask you, how is the logistics sector looking in the next 5 years, in the future? How do you see things are panning out?
The very fact that is attracting the younger people to look into logistics, and there are a lot of startups in the logistics sector which are technologically driven, and also some of them are even bought assets. So that is a testing time for them. How to manage trucks on the Indian roads is not an easy job. I wish them luck. So you'll find the very fact that the young minds are looking into logistics sector, that itself is a signal. And the amount of investment from the private equity come into the logistics sector in the last couple of months itself is an indication of where the logistic industry will be in 5 years later. So I think it's very exciting time. I don't think this industry has ever seen that kind of an excitement. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you, how is your experience being, at the Global Business Meet, and what are your key takeaways from here?
So I think it's a very interesting platform, a very serious platform, and it's sort of, again, whatever the world thinks of India, what we think of India, there's always been two different extremes, and platforms like this at least start getting people to talk together and start planning a future that's good together. Unfortunately, the world is moving more and more towards excluding outsiders and becoming more inclusive, and this, I think, is again a platform that helps cross those boundaries, start forming relationships across regions, across geographies, across types of businesses for a common good. In this case, we're talking of a common good of 1.5 billion people pretty much, and a platform like this can really get the best of the worlds to come in and set up shop here, whether it's through technology, whether it's through education, whether it's just through experience.
Hoping that there's going to be exciting times ahead of us. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this platform.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I have with me Shashi Kiran Shetty, the founder and chairman of All Cargo Logistics. I want to begin by asking you, there is the government's increased investment focus on infrastructure, whereas freight corridors are concerned, or roadways and even waterways are concerned, which should be, bode well with companies like yours. Yeah. So how do you see the next few years panning out for the logistics sector per se?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of buzz about the logistic industry, sure. Particularly post the announcement of GST, which is all likelihood going to get implemented from 1st of July. And also the recent budget, where the allocation for infrastructure development is fairly substantial, yeah, compared to last so many years of budget allocations. And the industry is very buoyant, and there is a lot that we are all hoping to come as an opportunity, and we are ready for it. Particularly GST, which is going to be a game changer in terms of the whole supply chain, which is spoken about a number of times. We never get bored repeating it, because the whole warehousing and distribution model, which is pretty backward at this stage, will match up with the best in the world. And that by itself will add a significant value to the GDP, and reduction in inventory cost, and the whole supply chain efficiency will multiply.
So, as you're saying, with consolidation of warehouses and perhaps the speed of things getting faster and pacier, do you think the time wasted in terms of waiting and watching and crossing borders will perhaps definitely reduce quite a bit?
Yeah, there is multiple benefits. Like you rightly said, the trucks take such a long time for moving from one city to another city. A lot of time is wasted, resources are wasted, fuel is wasted. The cargo gets held up in the border. That is also add to the cost. So I think it's a game changer.
So, as you said, the focus has suddenly shifted to the logistics industry and it's
Yes.
become pivotal in that sense.
Yes.
So, how do you see the industry, contributing, whereas the business growth in the country is concerned?
See, logistics has always been the backbone of any economy or any country or any industry for that matter. The only thing is it's a very fragmented industry, and there are a lot of professionally run organizations, but in terms of comparison, the fragmentation is very, very significant. I think with this developments around us, what will happen is, there will be a lot of consolidation. There will be a lot of players who are not able to cope up with the new normal. Probably will have to undergo some changes in their own structure or ease out from the business. I think the overall is very good for the industry and very good for the logistic companies, and people who can scale it up, people who can bring science into the whole business will be the big beneficiaries.
So are we going to see more joint ventures or partnerships with perhaps international players, because that's how maybe somebody can up their game?
For All Cargo is concerned, we are a global company. We already have the best practices that is practiced around the world existing in our organization in India and internationally. We already working for over 50 of the India's top 500 companies, providing supply chain management under the conditions whatever that is prevalent, and they're extremely happy with us. And and we see that business getting growing multi-dimensional, and the opportunity for us and for our company particularly, we are very, very bullish.
So, since you said you're present globally, if I had to ask you to compare India with its global peers,
Yes.
which is that one thing that India really lacks, which is stopping it to take that next leap in
Yeah.
the logistics sector? And how can we make ourselves more globally competitive?
One of the biggest thing is scale. In the Indian logistic companies have no scale. Very few, very, very few, handful have the scale which is required. And with the scale, you get the lot of other things. You get, for scale, first of all, you need to have a lot of expertise, you need to have capital, you need to have global customers, and they will not come unless you have the capital, unless you have the, the expertise.
Actually.
Yeah, exactly. The global management skills. And in our organization, we have all that. We have, today we operate from 200 offices all over the world, and obviously we need to have that kind of a management of various nationals. We have 4 regional headquarters, one in New York, one in Antwerp, Singapore, Hong Kong, and also India. So actually it is 5. So, in these markets we have the expertise of the global management team, which is already existing, and that will help us to scale up as India story unfolds more and more.
Now, I want to ask you about technology, because
Yes.
technology has
Yeah.
been key in developing a lot of sectors, a lot of industries.
Yes.
How do you think the logistics sector has optimized technology to the fullest? Or actually, I should say it has not to the fullest.
Yes.
But how do you see it leveraging
Yeah.
in the future?
Yeah. No, I think I'm very happy today. The government has taken a very big initiative to develop a common platform for the whole logistic industry. They're just about to announce the RFP
Right.
for vendors to participate in that, and that's a very, very bold and very important initiative that the government has taken, and that will help all the industry players to connect to this platform and do match with the rest of the world. So as far as we are concerned, we always been in the forefront of technology adaptation in our organization. We recently have hired about 8 months ago a chief digital officer who used to work for PayPal in San Francisco, and he joined us to digitalize our business internationally and in India, which of course is going to be a long-term plan. Will take us long-term in the sense it is at least about a 3-year plan before we roll it out. So I think there is a lot of opportunity to manage your business better, scale your business better, and offer a value-added services or an international standard of logistic to our customers, and bring the whole transaction cost down in the process, and help our organization in the meanwhile also to penetrate deep and wide in the logistic market.
You know, at any forum that you're present, India is poised to be, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So isn't there an urgent need for a multimodal, logistics framework to kind of at least start get in place in the country, because that's how perhaps we are going to take the next step in the logistics sector? Again,
talking about the sector, we are very, very blessed to have one of the most dynamic minister, and he's taking some really revolutionary steps and making really bold announcements about Sagarmala and building the whole framework of logistics in the country, integrating that with the Ministry of Railways, and developing more ports around the country, and port-led industrialization is part of the Sagarmala in any case. And the GST and whatever the suggestion that we as an industry have, his doors are always open, and we communicate with him very freely about what can be done to bring the logistic cost down. And one of the important factor we all understand and realize is the lack of infrastructure in our country, which is contributing significantly for the very high logistic cost. And the second thing is, there's a lot of red tape that is still involved in moving goods from port to the final destination, or final destination into the inland locations. Those are the challenges we have, and this government is very sincerely working on removing a lot of those bottlenecks.
So definitely, the first step, I should say, first few steps have already been taken to kind of revolutionize the sector. Mm-hmm. How do you, according to you, how do the next 5 years look like for the industry?
Very difficult to predict in that sense. I think the growth will be very substantial and very visible. I think it will also help the badly needed cold storages and distribution of perishable commodities by building that framework is also something I think which need to happen, and I think it will happen because a lot of companies have started it 10 years ago. Probably they were a little too early, and I think the time is now for even the cold chain development to happen in the country. And I believe there is a lot of logistic parks will come around in very strategic locations. Like ourselves, we already have land banks in Jajjar, which is outside Gurgaon. Right. It's close to about 180 acres, which are in the process of acquiring. We have 100 acres in Bangalore, 40 acres in Hyderabad, about 50 acres in Nagpur. All these locations we are likely to develop the logistic parks in the coming years as the opportunity unfolds. So we are some very exciting time.
Lastly, I would like to ask you, about your association with the Global Business Summit. How do you think a platform like this helps in perhaps tackling the challenges that each industry is facing today and come up with solutions that can help them grow in the future?
I think associating with Times Group is always a privilege. That's how we see inside our organization. And I think, you're doing a great job, and you're covering what need to be covered, and we are all here to help.
All right. Thank you so much, Shashi, for your time, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.